Like gnarled tentacles, grasping for a better foothold. A twisted labyrinth of arching roots stretches across the murky depths of a flooded swamp. These are the lifelines of a survivor. A giant red mangrove rooted in the coastal forests of southern Mexico. One of the tallest mangroves on Earth, the 130-foot tree battles the extremes in a world repeatedly drowned by the tides. Here, racer crabs fight for their place amongst the mangrove's roots. It's where the American crocodile learns to hunt. Within its high-rise canopy, the towering mangrove nurtures new life. For all who live in this fluctuating realm of salt and sea, the resilient red mangrove is a safe oasis. A constant that remains tangled in the tides. It's February, the peak of the dry season in southern Mexico. Break of day casts off night's ghostly shroud, painting the mangrove forest in drab tones of ash and stone. Even before the first hint of sun meets the mangroves, coastal creatures stir in this dark and steamy forest. It's a burgeoning kingdom. At sunrise, the sky's burning orb casts a golden glow across the water. Transforming the bay into liquid gold. Dawn's morning rays wake a flock of vultures that spend the night in the great red mangrove's canopy. These scavengers are permanent residents of this coastal paradise. The birds spread their wings to soak up the sun's heat. The mixed flock of turkey and American black vultures wait for the mercury to rise. As the currents warm, they launch themselves into the sky. At first, only a few take to the air. But soon there are thousands, soaring in the blue expanse above the great red's canopy. The kettle churns and swirls, a breathtaking twister of black birds. For a large raptor, flapping your wings can be exhausting. So the vultures use the thermals to glide. They ride the currents for up to 2 hours, scouring the land for food. Beneath them lies La Encrucijada, a protected emerald Eden sculpted by the tides. Around the world, few mangrove forests like this remain. A maze of brackish channels snakes through the ocean of mangroves. A world caught between the tides and fringed by coastal lagoons. It's a lush haven for any animal able to adapt to this constantly changing realm of saltwater and sweet. The red is one in a million. It stands unyielding on the edge of a channel that flows to the mouth of the bay, then spills into the sweeping Pacific. In the waters below the Great Red, an ominous armor-plated form glides through the morning tide sparkles. Thanks to salt-excreting glands under their tongue, American crocodiles thrive in this coastal swamp. This female hunts in the channel in front of the towering red. A bustle of flapping brown pelicans draws her eye to the open water. A second pair of transparent eyelids allows the croc to see underwater as she approaches from below. She can remain submerged for up to 2 hours, patiently waiting for an unsuspecting victim. But one of the bathers spots the dark specter closing in. Too little, too late. Hungry, she returns to the bank where she has a new nest to guard. This is her duty for the next 3 months. Unlike most trees, the mighty red isn't dependent on the seasons, but instead is ruled by the tides. Twice a day, the Pacific Ocean floods the channel in front of the mangrove. The ebb and flow of water between the tree's roots is ceaseless. First it comes, then it goes. A never-ending cycle of renewal. As the tide shifts, the ocean's trickle begins to spill onto the mudflat at the base of the mangrove. To escape the clutches of high tide, periwinkles and mudwhelks climb to the crest of the roots on tiny rivers of slime. The whelk treats Big Red to a good scrub. It scrapes fungus and algae from the surface of the root, with a hard ribbon within its mouth called a radula. It's a win-win situation. The whelk stays dry and fed, while the tree gets its bark cleaned. Time and again, the high tide drowns the mighty red's roots. Most trees would suffocate in this swamp's oxygen-poor soils. But not this survivor. Aerial roots hang like thick locks of hair from the mangrove's canopy. And from its trunk, the tree sends out a weave of probing prop roots that keep it upright in the soft mud. Each root is bespattered with white freckles. These pores, called lenticels, help the mangrove to breathe by sucking oxygen from the air. As the tree sinks its snake-like fingers into the soil, many smaller roots sprout from them. The great red wears a flaring petticoat of rigid roots. This ever-evolving web at its base makes it appear as if the mangrove is walking on water, earning it the nickname, the walking tree. At high tide, the Pacific spills its crystal clear blue waters into the lagoon. As two worlds collide, a distinct line forms between the sea's untainted offering and the estuary's coffee-colored brew. The ocean's aquamarine touch flows into the channels. Murky brown sweet water slowly turns salty blue. Soon, the mudflats that grip the red's flooded roots transform into a sparkling aquatic kingdom. Legions of snapper, sardine, and others use the tree's knotted petticoat as a nursery. It's an elegant waltz of fish. The diverse stew of aquatic creatures between the mangrove's roots entices a variety of seafood lovers. But somebody has already staked a claim to this hunting ground. A small green heron stalks his prey from the red's tangled limbs. Higher ground offers a better vantage point. But the fish aren't always that easy to reach. Silly bird. A little blue heron invades the green heron's fishing spot. The territorial green won't stand for it. His loud squawks chase the intruder off. At dusk, the sun casts a gilded glow to the rolling surf. It's April, the end of the dry season in southern Mexico. But temperatures in La Encrucijada remain the same. Here, it always feels like summer. A ringed kingfisher heralds the birth of a new day. And the sun's blissful rays waken the swamp. Forest residents soak up the warming glow of Earth's brightest star. Amongst them, a female black spiny-tailed iguana basks on the riverbank close to the Great Red. And she's not alone. Unlike hers, the male iguana's dorsal crest is well developed. But at the moment, this doesn't impress her. She has to get to higher ground before the tide consumes the forest. Fortunately, she's a master tree climber and scales the mangrove's branches with ease to look for a spot where she can lounge. Well, like a lizard. The cold-blooded reptile can't regulate her body temperature internally, so she lies on the red's exposed boughs to bask in the sun. But there's no escaping the salty water when you live in a coastal swamp. And salt can be deadly. To prevent dehydration, the hefty lizard rids herself of the excess salt with a sneeze. Specialized glands in her snout squirt the salt from her nostrils in a fine spray. Gesundheit. The Great Red is also well equipped to cope with high tide's briny onslaught. The mangrove filters as much as 90% of the salt from the seawater that enters its roots. The tree sends the surplus salt to specific leaves. These sacrificial leaves turn yellow and begin to die. The tree surrenders its salt-laden offering to the currents below. A healthy mangrove will drop its lemon-colored trinkets throughout the year. Most of the red's discarded leaves get trapped in the forest's vast web of roots, providing a banquet of organic waste to the host of creatures between its limbs. One such critter is the mangrove racer crab. But leaves that have recently fallen are low in nitrogen, something the racers need. And they're filled with foul-tasting tannins, not to the crab's liking. To resolve this dilemma, the racers wait for the tree's castaway gifts to decompose. When bacteria break down the leaves, it improves their flavor and increases their nitrogen content. At high tide, the mighty red mangrove is lit up by its own gleaming splendor. The flowing shards of light lay bare the red's gnarled imperfections. This mangrove has warts, its ancient frame marred with swollen notches. These are the nests of ants, Azteca ants to be precise. The great red provides a home for the colony within its limbs. In exchange, the ants act as the tree's personal armed guard against anything that dares to touch the tree's frame. But navigating this flooded empire is tricky. It's filled with danger. To stay high and dry, the colony constructs a maze of tunnels on the tree's arching roots. Like varicose veins, they scar every bough. They're the ants' highways and byways that carry the colony from root to canopy. In May, heaven's breath becomes a stifling burden. The air, thick with moisture, hangs heavy amidst the mangroves. But its oppressive grip is misleading. It may feel warmer, but it's just humidity wringing the sweat from the skies. Wisps of white are forged on the wind above the mighty red. Soon, a seething mass of cumulus clouds conquers the wild blue yonder. Earth's billowing blanket casts an ominous shadow over the mangroves. At first, the clouds release a few fine drops on the water's surface. Heavens open. When storms rage, mangroves protect the land. Their sturdy wooden claws form a formidable barrier and absorb the blows dealt by Mother Nature. The wet season has officially arrived. The storm leaves the beach littered with dead fish. For the vultures, it's a welcome gift from Poseidon. They may be social creatures, but when it comes to food, these black scavengers are excessively selfish. A few assertive pecks show the young birds who's boss. Soon, things escalate. The more assertive thief rules over the scraps. In response to the wet season's elixir of life, the great red sends forth a burst of buds. In La Encrucijada, individual mangroves flower at different times of the year. And May is the great red's turn to bear its modest offering. No need to flaunt these tiny blossoms. They aren't meant for the insects. And yet, the fluffy white bells don't go unnoticed. But the mighty mangrove needs little help from this motley crew. Its pollen floats on the wind. The fertile dust doesn't even have to drift far. The red mangrove is one of the few trees that can pollinate its own flowers. A peculiar spider inches its way onto one of the mangrove's leaves. Wait a minute. That's no spider. In an exquisite act of self-preservation, the monkey slug caterpillar has evolved to disguise itself as a predator. It sports 6 hairy arms, which curl along the edge of its body, mimicking the appearance of a tarantula. The young night heron's not sure what to make of this oddity. To feed or to flee? In June, the sun's fiery chariot charges across the sky at the birth of a new day and sets ablaze the wet dawn's smoldering billows. The sunrise reveals a smattering of broken eggshells that litter the sandy riverbank close to the Great Red. And digging amongst the cracked remnants, a coati, an ardent egg lover. Gentle grunts softly croak from between the mighty red's maze of roots. The baby crocs hatched in the night. The coati discovered the nest too late. The hatchlings hide from predators amongst the mangrove's twisted tentacles. And Mom keeps a watchful eye on her little ones. She will guard them for several weeks. But she can't protect her hatchlings if the attack comes from above. Ospreys. A youngster hungrily nags its parents for food. They mostly eat fish, but having a ravenous fledgling takes its toll. And if the opportunity arises, they will snatch a tiny crocodile from the water. It's best to stay out of sight and remain vigilant. In about 5 weeks, the little crocs will leave their mother's side to start lives of their own. Most of them will not survive to adulthood. For now, this one's biggest concern is sharing a root with a young racer crab. As with their flowers, each mangrove tree yields fruit at a different time of the year. And in July, the twisted red delivers its crop. Small greenish-brown drupelets replace the tree's tiny blossoms. One of these fruits grows to about an inch. Procreating in this saline swamp has its complications. The seeds of most trees could never take root in these saturated and salty soils. But once again, the red mangrove overcomes the elements. The seed of this peculiar tree germinates within its fruit while it's still attached to a branch. Once this happens, a tiny shoot sprouts from the tip of the fruit. This long, thin, cigar-shaped tentacle is called a propagule and is, in effect, the birth of a new mangrove tree. Somewhere behind the great red's woody dreadlocks, branches rustle, disrupting the endless chatter of birds. Dark phantoms with unusually long limbs clamber through the forest canopy close to the mangrove. It's a troop of black-handed spider monkeys. These endangered primates are here for one reason: a fruiting sapodilla behind the great red. Its intoxicatingly sweet offering beguiles the black hands. But eating these sticky treats is a messy affair. To avoid dribbling the syrupy sap all over its furry body, a spider monkey hangs upside down. By the end of August, the contorted mudwalker flaunts 1,000 dangling pendants. Its propagules have grown into 10-inch pencils. The young saplings are now ready to let go. And one by one, their parent sets them free. The tides scatter the seedlings all over La Encrucijada. They're so resilient, they can drift in the currents for up to a year. With time, the tip of the propagule becomes waterlogged and begins to sink. Eventually, the sapling becomes lodged in the soft sand. Time will tell whether it's able to take root. For many, September is breeding season. The great red gently cradles a delicate treasure on its lower branches. The tiny nest holds 3 pale bluish-green eggs. They belong to the grumpy green heron. The Grinch has found a mate. For the next 3 weeks, he and his partner will take turns to nurture their brood. The Greens aren't the only ones to expand their family. All over the red mangrove's contorted limbs, racer crabs carry their own small bundles of joy. A female's wide abdomen opens up like a trap door and contains several feathery fingers with which she holds her unfertilized eggs. She also carries sperm collected from a male crab. When the eggs are mature, she releases both eggs and sperm into the water, fertilizing them. Here, they'll hatch in the safety of the great red's grasp. The wet season's destructive touch proves beneficial to the iguanas. A nearby tree has surrendered a limb to the elements. Where it split, a hollow formed in its trunk. The male iguana uses the gaping wound to soak up the sun. He's not the only one with this bright idea. The female also finds the fractured tree alluring and makes herself comfortable in the penthouse. The grumpy green heron is trying his luck once more. But this time, he's not fishing for himself. Back at their nest, his mate nestles their newly hatched chicks. Dad's fishing for them. The grouchy heron has grown much more tolerant. This delightful trio makes it difficult to stay cranky. The scruffy hatchlings just won't sit still and persistently hound their parents for food. To coax the treats from his crop, a chick eagerly plucks at Dad's beak. And he heaves up a prize for his brood. That which he deems too big for the little ones, he swallows again. But greed gets the better of the fluffy hoglet. Time flows like the tides. It comes and it goes, and washes away life's woes. It's October, the end of the wet season. At high tide, the brown pelicans take to the great red's lofty canopy. Between its twisted tentacles, the red mangrove bears witness to new life. Tiny racer crabs use its long, resilient limbs to crawl from the water. Once again, the invasion of colorful crustaceans entices a host of seafood lovers. But there are plenty of nooks and crannies in which to hide. The trio of green heron chicks have fledged. It's time for them to learn to fish for themselves. But in these waters, danger always lurks. Life in the mangroves is a dangerous dance. These forests have protected tropical coastlines for millennia. But human development has ransacked their realm. And as they disappear, so do the species that live in them. But the tide is at last beginning to turn. The rate of mangrove destruction has slowed. On a faraway shore, one of the mighty red saplings has managed to take root. Barnacles already adorn the young tree, and a single yellow leaf removes the burden of life in this saline realm. With time, it too will become a thriving mangrove forest that protects Mexico's coastline.